What would you do if a starving 7-year-old girl looked you in the eyes and said, "Please help my brother too," as she clutched a handful of bread scraps? Most of us would like to think we'd help. But when tech millionaire David Chen heard those exact words outside a rundown convenience store in Bangkok, his response didn't just change 2 lives, it sparked a movement that's now feeding thousands of children across Southeast Asia. This is the story of how 5 simple words from a desperate child became the catalyst for something extraordinary. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why sometimes the most powerful changes in the world start with the smallest voices. It was March 15, 2019, and David Chen was having the worst day of his professional life. His tech startup had just lost a major investor, his board was questioning his leadership, and he was walking the streets of Bangkok at 11 p.m., trying to clear his head before catching a red-eye flight back to San Francisco. The successful entrepreneur, worth an estimated $42 million, had built his fortune creating mobile apps, but tonight he felt like everything was crumbling. That's when he saw her. A little girl, no more than 7 years old, digging through a trash bin behind a 7-Eleven. Her clothes were torn, her feet bare, and she was carefully examining each piece of discarded food like it was treasure. David stopped walking. In all his years of business travel, he'd seen poverty, but something about this child's methodical approach to survival hit him differently. He approached carefully, not wanting to frighten her. In broken Thai mixed with English, he asked if she was okay. The girl looked up with eyes that seemed far too old for her face. She was holding half a stale sandwich and some bruised fruit. But instead of running or begging, she did something that would haunt David for months to come. She smiled. "Mister," she said in surprisingly clear English, "you look sad too." David was stunned. Here was a child living on scraps, and she was concerned about his emotional state. He asked her name. "Molly," she replied, then pointed to a cardboard lean-to propped against the building's side wall. "My brother Niran is sick. We share everything." David's throat tightened as he realized this wasn't just one child's story, it was 2. Molly wasn't just surviving, she was caring for someone else. When he offered to buy her a proper meal from the convenience store, her response changed everything. "Please help my brother too." What David discovered next would shatter every assumption he had about resilience, family, and what truly matters in life. Following Molly to her makeshift shelter, he found 9-year-old Niran lying on a thin blanket, burning with fever. The boy had been sick for 3 days, and Molly had been caring for him alone, sharing every scrap of food she could find and using her own small body to keep him warm at night. The siblings had been living on the streets for 8 months after their parents died in a motorcycle accident, a tragically common occurrence in Thailand, where traffic accidents claim over 20,000 lives annually. With no extended family willing or able to care for them, Molly and Niran had slipped through the cracks of an overwhelmed social system. They survived by Molly's wit and courage, sleeping in different locations each night to avoid police sweeps, and eating whatever they could find or earn through small favors. But here's what struck David most: despite their desperate circumstances, the children had developed an unbreakable bond. Molly would go entire days without eating if it meant Niran could have an extra portion. She'd learned basic first aid from watching pharmacy customers and had been treating his fever with wet cloths and aspirin she'd somehow managed to buy with coins collected from tourists. Niran, even in his weakened state, worried constantly about his little sister. He'd insist she eat first, tell her stories to keep her spirits up, and make her promise never to go too far when searching for food. Their love for each other had become their survival mechanism, but it was also slowly killing them. Molly was losing weight rapidly from giving away her food, and Niran's illness was worsening without proper medical care. David realized he wasn't just looking at 2 hungry children, he was witnessing a love so pure it was willing to sacrifice everything, including life itself, for the other person's well-being. In his world of competitive business and calculated risks, such unconditional love was rare. These children possessed something his wealth couldn't buy: absolute devotion to each other's welfare. What happened next surprised everyone, including David himself. Instead of simply giving the children money or buying them a meal, he made a decision that would redirect his entire life's purpose. He looked at Molly and Niran and spoke with a firmness that even he didn't expect. "You're both coming with me. Right now. No more nights on the street." But David's response wasn't impulsive charity, it was the calculated decision of a successful businessman who just found his next big project. Within 2 hours, he'd contacted the best pediatric hospital in Bangkok, arranged emergency medical care for Niran, found temporary housing for both children, and begun the complex legal process of becoming their guardian. His business problems suddenly seemed insignificant compared to 2 lives hanging in the balance. The medical evaluation revealed the full extent of their situation. Niran had pneumonia and severe malnutrition, while Molly showed signs of chronic stress and was dangerously underweight. The doctor told David that without intervention, Niran might not have survived another week, and Molly was slowly starving herself to keep her brother alive, but David's firm response extended far beyond medical care. He cancelled his flight, postponed board meetings, and spent the next 3 weeks in Bangkok ensuring the children's recovery. He hired a local social worker, enrolled them in a private international school, and began learning Thai so he could communicate better with them. His business partners thought he'd lost his mind, but David had never been more certain of anything in his life. The transformation was remarkable. Within a month, Niran's health had stabilized, and both children were gaining weight and beginning to trust that their next meal was guaranteed. But more importantly, they maintained their incredible bond while learning they didn't have to sacrifice their own well-being for each other's survival. David discovered something profound during those weeks: the same strategic thinking that had made him successful in business could be applied to solving social problems. He began researching child homelessness in Southeast Asia, studying successful intervention programs, and developing what would become his new mission. The children who'd been living day to day had given him a long-term purpose that felt more meaningful than any profit margin. Molly and Niran didn't just receive help, they became David's teachers. They showed him that true wealth isn't measured in bank accounts but in the willingness to put someone else's needs before your own. Their story became the foundation for something much larger than a single act of kindness. What started with 5 words from a 7-year-old girl has now become the Molly Foundation, one of Southeast Asia's most effective child welfare organizations. Named after the brave little girl who refused to be helped without her brother, the foundation has transformed thousands of lives across Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, and the Philippines. But the foundation's approach is unique, inspired directly by Molly and Niran's story. Instead of traditional orphanages that separate siblings, the Molly Foundation specializes in keeping families together while providing comprehensive support. They've developed mobile medical units that reach street children where they live, created educational programs that work around survival schedules, and established a network of foster families specifically trained to care for sibling groups. The statistics are staggering. In just 4 years, the foundation has provided medical care to over 8,000 children, placed 1,200 children in permanent homes, and prevented the separation of 400 sibling groups. Their success rate for keeping families together is 94%, compared to the regional average of 31%. But numbers only tell part of the story. Take the case of 3 brothers found living in a Bangkok train station, ages 6, 8, and 10, who'd been caring for each other after their grandmother died. Traditional placement would have split them up based on age and special needs. The Molly Foundation kept them together, found a foster family willing to take all 3, and provided ongoing support for education and medical care. Today, all 3 boys are thriving in school, and the oldest wants to become a doctor. Or consider the twin girls found in Phnom Penh, one of whom was deaf and had been protecting her sister from exploitation. The foundation not only kept them together but provided specialized education for the deaf child while ensuring both girls received trauma counseling. They're now both in high school and serve as peer counselors for other children in similar situations. David's firm response to Molly's 5 words created a blueprint that's being replicated across the region. The foundation trains local organizations in their methods, provides funding for sibling preservation programs, and advocates for policy changes that prioritize family unity in child welfare decisions. But perhaps most importantly, Molly and Niran themselves have become advocates. Now 11 and 13 years old, they speak at foundation events, sharing their story to inspire others and help people understand that homeless children aren't statistics, they're individuals with profound love and loyalty for each other. The Molly Foundation's success has caught international attention, but the real story is how it's changing the way people think about poverty, family, and social responsibility. David's approach has inspired similar programs in Brazil, India, and Kenya, proving that the principles learned from two Thai street children can work anywhere in the world. Major corporations have taken notice. Google has provided technology infrastructure, Microsoft donated educational software, and Johnson & Johnson supplies medical equipment. But these partnerships exist because David insisted on one non-negotiable principle: every decision must be evaluated through the lens of keeping families together. Just like Molly insisted her brother be helped too, the foundation has also revolutionized how wealthy individuals engage with charitable causes. Instead of writing checks and walking away, David's model encourages deep, personal involvement. He still mentors Molly and Niran personally, attending their school events and involving them in foundation decisions. This hands-on approach has inspired other millionaires to adopt similar relationships with the children their donations support. Research institutions are studying the Molly Foundation's methods. Harvard School of Public Health published a paper on their sibling preservation techniques, finding that children who remain with brothers and sisters during crisis interventions show 300% better long-term outcomes in education, mental health, and social development. The University of Oxford is developing a certification program for social workers based on the Foundation's training methods, but the most profound change may be in how society views homeless children. Instead of seeing them as individual problems to be solved, people are beginning to understand them as members of family units that must be preserved. Policy makers across Southeast Asia are revising child welfare laws to prioritize sibling placement, and several countries have banned the separation of brothers and sisters in foster care unless absolutely necessary for safety reasons. Molly's simple request has become a rallying cry for family-centered social work worldwide. Please help my brother too isn't just about one girl's love for her sibling, it's about recognizing that people are stronger when they face challenges together, and that true help addresses entire family systems rather than isolated individuals. The Foundation's work has also highlighted the incredible resilience children possess when they have someone to fight for. Molly and Niran's ability to survive on the streets while caring for each other has been studied by child psychologists, revealing new insights about the power of sibling bonds in trauma recovery. Today, Molly and Niran are thriving in ways that seemed impossible during those desperate nights behind the Bangkok convenience store. Molly, now 11, is at the top of her class in mathematics and has developed a passion for architecture. She wants to design buildings that can provide temporary shelter for homeless families, structures that keep people together rather than splitting them up. Her teachers describe her as remarkably empathetic, often helping struggling classmates without being asked. Niran, 13, has fully recovered from his childhood illness and discovered a talent for languages. He speaks Thai, English, and Mandarin fluently and is learning Japanese. His goal is to become an international aid worker, specifically focusing on children's rights. The boy who once lay fevered and helpless on a piece of cardboard now advocates for other vulnerable children at regional conferences, but perhaps most remarkably, they've maintained the beautiful bond that saved both their lives. They still share everything, not from desperation now, but from choice. When Molly receives praise for her academic achievements, she immediately credits Niran's encouragement. When Niran wins awards for his community service, he insists Molly should share the recognition because she taught me how to care about others. David Chen's life has changed just as dramatically. He eventually sold his tech company and now works full-time running the Molly Foundation. His decision to abandon a lucrative career for social work has cost him financially. His net worth has dropped from $42 million to about $8 million, but he describes himself as infinitely wealthier in every way that matters. I used to measure success in downloads and revenue, David explains in interviews. Now I measure it in siblings who get to stay together, in sick children who receive medical care, in futures that transform from hopeless to limitless. Molly and Niran didn't just change their own lives, they showed me what mine was supposed to be about. The Foundation's impact continues expanding. Last year, they opened their first center in the Philippines, specifically designed around keeping street children with their siblings while providing comprehensive services. They're developing a mobile app that connects homeless families with resources while tracking sibling groups to ensure they're never separated by different service providers. Molly and Niran remain actively involved in the foundation's work, not as poster children but as genuine contributors. They help design programs, speak with newly rescued children, and provide insights that only someone who's lived on the streets can offer. Their input has been crucial in developing services that actually meet children's needs rather than what adults think they need. Please help my brother too. 5 words that changed everything. Not because they were eloquent or sophisticated, but because they revealed a truth that our world desperately needed to hear: real help doesn't abandon anyone. It includes everyone who matters to the person you're trying to assist. Molly's request wasn't just about food or shelter, it was about understanding that love and loyalty make people who they are, and any help that destroys those connections isn't help at all. Her wisdom, born from the hardest circumstances imaginable, has now influenced child welfare policies across multiple continents and inspired a movement that prioritizes family unity in crisis intervention. The story of Molly, Niran, and David proves that extraordinary change often begins with the simplest human truths. A little girl's refusal to be saved without her brother has saved thousands of other children from being separated from their siblings. A millionaire's willingness to listen to that wisdom has created sustainable solutions to problems that governments and NGOs had struggled with for decades. But this isn't really a story about wealth or poverty, success or failure. It's about recognition, the moment when we truly see another person and understand what they need most. David's firm response wasn't just about providing resources, it was about honoring Molly's insight that help without love isn't help at all. Today, whenever the Molly Foundation evaluates a new program or intervention, they ask one question: would this honor Molly's request? Not just the specific words she spoke, but the deeper wisdom behind them, that people are stronger together, that love shouldn't be sacrificed for survival, and that true help preserves what makes life worth living. The Foundation's motto, written in Thai, English, and local languages at every center, captures this perfectly: no one gets left behind. It's a promise that began with a 7-year-old girl who understood something about family that the adult world had forgotten. Molly and Niran's story reminds us that the most profound changes often start with the smallest voices speaking the deepest truths. Sometimes all it takes is someone brave enough to say, "Please help my brother too," and someone wise enough to listen. Their journey from the streets of Bangkok to international advocacy proves that there's no limit to what's possible when love and resources combine. But more than that, it shows us that sometimes the people we think we're helping are actually the ones helping us discover what really matters in life. So the next time someone asks for help, whether it's a child on the street, a colleague at work, or a neighbor in crisis, remember Molly's wisdom. Ask yourself, who else matters to this person? Who else needs to be included for the help to be complete? Because real change happens when we respond to not just what people say they need, but what they show us they value most. If this story moved you, if it changed how you think about helping others or what true wealth means, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear Molly's message. Subscribe for more stories about ordinary people creating extraordinary change, and let me know in the comments, what would you do if faced with Molly's request? How can we all learn to help in ways that honor the connections that make life meaningful? Because at the end of the day, we're all asking the same thing Molly asked: please don't leave behind the people who matter to us most. And maybe, if we listen closely enough, we'll discover that helping others help the people they love is the secret to helping ourselves become who we're meant to be.